12 seconds. That's all it took. 12 seconds of a stranger's kindness that changed the entire trajectory of my life. And I'm telling you this because you have no idea how powerful you truly are in the lives of others even. In the smallest, quietest, most unexpected moments. You think your impact comes from the big achievements, the massive breakthroughs, the loud successes. But sometimes the thing that shapes a human being forever is a gentle act. A choice so small it barely felt like a decision at all. I remember standing there in a place in my life where I felt invisible, lost, confused. And this person, someone who owed me nothing, someone who didn't know my story, my pain, my fears, looked me in the eyes with a level of presence I wasn't giving myself. They offered a word, a gesture, a warmth that pierced through the fog I was drowning in. And that moment reminded me that we, as human beings, are designed to lift each other. We are wired to make each other seen. But somewhere along the way, we forget that. We rush, we disconnect, we move fast, and we lose sight of the fact that the smallest spark of kindness can ignite a fire in someone who's been living in the dark for too long. See, kindness isn't about being soft. It's not weakness, it's power. It's awareness. It's leadership in its purest form. It's the courage to stop, to notice, to care. It's the decision to be the person who leans in rather than pulls away. You want to transform your life? Start by transforming the moments you share with people every day. You want to elevate your own state? Elevate someone else's. Because when you give kindness, you're not just giving comfort, you're giving identity. You're saying, you matter, I see you, you're part of this world, and you're not alone. And let me tell you something, some people around you are carrying weights you will never see. They look strong, they act fine, they smile through the storm, but they are one small act of kindness away from believing in themselves again. One act away from remembering they're still capable. One act away from deciding not to give up. Imagine that. Imagine the kind of world we'd live in if each of us recognized the massive impact of these tiny choices. If we understood that the words we speak, the gestures we offer, the presence we give, they echo. They outlive us. They shape people long after the moment passes. So when you feel like you don't have enough to give kindness. When you feel powerless, give kindness. When you don't know how to change your own life, change someone else's experience in the smallest way possible. Smile at the person who looks disconnected. Hold the door for the one rushing behind you. Tell someone they're doing a great job. Speak life into a stranger who's too tired to believe in their own strength. These acts are tiny deposits into the soul of humanity. And trust me, they come back to you multiplied. You never know who's watching. You never know who's hurting. You never know which moment becomes the moment that shapes a life. And maybe, just maybe, the greatest thing you will ever do won't be the achievement you post about, or the milestone you hit, or the success you chase. Maybe it will be that small act of kindness you barely remember, but someone else never forgets. A single act of kindness can transform a life in ways you may never see. And the truth is, most people underestimate the weight of their own presence. They underestimate how deeply their smile, their words, their attention, or their compassion can ripple through another person's world. We often think impact requires grand gestures or massive resources, but the human heart is shaped in moments that are often quiet, simple, and unexpected. Think about the people who've influenced you the most. It's not always the ones who gave you the most money or the most praise. Sometimes it's the ones who stopped, noticed, and offered something genuine at a moment when you needed it more than you could express. And what's fascinating is that the person delivering that kindness rarely realizes the magnitude of what they've done. They don't see how that small act becomes a turning point in your beliefs, your self-worth, or your direction. The reason this happens is because kindness doesn't just touch the surface, it touches identity. When someone chooses kindness, they're telling you that you matter, not because of what you've achieved, but because you exist. That message lands in places logic can't reach. It reaches the places where doubt has been living, where fear has been whispering, where exhaustion has been pulling you down. Kindness steps in and interrupts that pattern. It shakes something loose. It makes you pause long enough to breathe, long enough to remember that you're still human, still connected, still capable of rising. And what's even more powerful is that kindness opens the door to possibility. When you feel supported for even a moment, your focus shifts, your energy shifts, your mindset shifts. Suddenly you can see options where before there were none. You can take one more step, try one more time, believe for one more day. We all carry stories inside us that no one else fully knows. Some people are one kind moment away from giving themselves another chance, one kind word away from believing they still matter, one kind gesture away from deciding not to quit on themselves. You never know when you will be the person who delivers that moment. You never know when you'll be the interruption in someone's spiral, the breath of fresh air in someone's suffocating season, the person who unknowingly shifts their direction back toward light. That's why your smallest acts hold power. They don't rely on your perfection. They don't require you to be extraordinary. They only require your willingness to care, your willingness to be present, your willingness to see someone as a human being instead of an obstacle or background noise. It's incredible how we move through life surrounded by people who are hurting but hiding it well. They're high functioning. They're capable, they're responsible, they're smiling, but inside they're carrying weight that's grinding them down. And sometimes all they need is someone who doesn't walk past them, someone who slows down, someone who acknowledges them, someone who triggers a sense of worthiness they forgot they had. That is what kindness does. It makes people feel seen again. It reconnects them to their humanity. It helps them stand a little taller, breathe a little deeper, trust themselves a little more. There is a part of us that comes alive when we contribute to others. Even in small ways, when you act with kindness, you activate the part of your spirit that remembers what you're really here for. Not the noise, not the competition, not the endless grind, but connection, contribution, elevating lives in ways that don't always get applause, but always create impact. And every time you choose kindness, you strengthen your own leadership, because leadership isn't about control or authority. It's about influence. And the most powerful influence you can have is the ability to shift someone's emotional state, even for a moment, in a direction that empowers them. When you operate from kindness, your energy changes. People feel safer around you. They open up, they trust more. They're more willing to bring the best version of themselves forward. This creates a ripple of positive behavior that extends far beyond the moment you shared. They take that kindness into their next interaction, into their home, their workplace, their relationships, and suddenly your small act becomes part of a chain you'll never fully see, but it keeps expanding, keeps elevating, keeps shaping people you'll never meet. Your smallest choices of compassion carry the power to shape someone's identity, hope, and future. And the remarkable part is that you might never realize the magnitude of what you've done. We move through life making decisions every moment. How we speak, how we respond, how we listen, how we look at someone, how we show up. And these choices seem insignificant, almost automatic. But for the person receiving your energy, your presence, your empathy, those choices can land like a lifeline. They can become the moment they begin seeing themselves differently. They can become the moment they regain a sense of hope they thought was gone forever. People don't just remember what you did for them, they remember how you made them feel about themselves. And compassion has a way of making people feel capable, worthy, and alive again. Compassion isn't just an emotion, it's an intention. It's a decision to step outside your own world for a moment and recognize what someone else might be carrying. It's a willingness to look deeper than the surface and ask yourself, how can I contribute here? How can I leave this person better than I found them? The beauty is that you don't need to fix someone's, to shape their future. You just need to influence their emotional state long enough for them to remember their own strength. A kind tone, an understanding nod, a moment of patience, a genuine word. These things seem small, but they have the power to interrupt the story someone has been telling themselves. They replace doubt with possibility, fear with openness, heaviness with relief. And when someone's emotional state shifts, even slightly, their decisions, actions, and direction shift right along with it. We all have moments where we're right on the edge, not necessarily of giving up, but of shutting down, shrinking, disconnecting from our own potential. In those moments, a little compassion doesn't just soothe the heart, it reshapes the mind. It reminds you that you're not alone, that you're seen, that someone cares enough to pause for you. And that pause can be the space where clarity returns, where resilience reignites, where courage resurfaces. Your compassion becomes the trigger that helps someone step back into their power. And what's incredible is that you might never know you played that role. You might never hear the story, never witness the impact, never be thanked, but the influence remains. Because compassion is not wasted. It always lands somewhere meaningful in the human spirit. The smallest compassionate gesture can change how someone views themselves. Maybe they start to believe they're worthy of respect because you spoke to them respectfully. Maybe they start to believe they can do hard things because you acknowledge their effort. Maybe they start to trust themselves again because you trusted them first. Identity is shaped through reflection, through how others respond to us, through how we're treated, through the energy we receive. When you choose compassion, you give someone a new mirror to see themselves through. You help them rewrite that they believe they deserve. You help them reconnect to strengths they forgot they had. You help them see they're not defined by their struggles, but by their capacity to rise. And when someone's sense of identity shifts, their entire future shifts with it. They make different decisions. They take bolder steps. They expect more from themselves. They allow themselves to grow. Compassion isn't about fixing the future for someone. It's about equipping them emotionally so they can build their own. Your presence becomes the catalyst. Your kindness becomes the anchor. Your understanding becomes the platform they rise from. And none of this requires grand gestures. It requires awareness, presence, and the willingness to offer the best of who you are in the smallest of moments. In a world where people are constantly rushing, judging, reacting, and defending, compassion stands out. It becomes a rare signal in all the noise. And people respond to that signal more deeply than they ever express. They remember the moment they felt safe. They remember the moment they felt heard. They remember the moment someone chose patience over frustration, empathy over judgment, connection over indifference. These memories shape behavior. They influence how that person treats others. They influence how they show up in their relationships, their work, and their challenges. Your compassion becomes a ripple that extends through their life and through the lives of those they touch. And what's even more powerful is that compassion changes you as well. When you choose to care, even in small ways, you step into a higher version of yourself. You become someone who contributes, someone who elevates, someone who leads with heart instead of ego. This aligns you with purpose, with meaning, with a deeper sense of fulfillment, because the truth is the moments that matter most are rarely the ones where you accomplish something huge. They're the moments where you lifted someone in a way that changed how they saw themselves, and in doing so, you changed the trajectory of their life without ever needing recognition or reward.